by the way, we are recording all the talks because I post that also at the OMI Islam, etc., etc. And some
Very good.
people would like it to see that in YouTube. So everything is converted to YouTube, and then after that uploaded. You see, of course, uploaded in my own Facebook and in on my, and then uploaded now also at the OMI Philippines. Now, Chicho asked me if I think they would like to put that also in the OMI world, but we will talk about that later. Okay. Now the concrete of the southern Philippines. So by way of example, perhaps you can do that also in the context of Western Sahara. So in the southern Philippines, or particularly where we live, the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, how much really Islam, you see, contribute in the shaping of our spiritual journey. So how much the struggle of the Bangsamoro, because now we know that that is a big contentious issue between Christians and Muslim, and with the indigenous people also, the struggle of the Bangsamoro. And then that shaped the new government structure, that shaped also not only the new government structure, but the new consciousness and awareness of the Bangsamoro. So that particular struggle is very much present. So how much will that struggle shape also the kind of spirituality that we have? So that is the question. Then, of course, the Muslim-Christian relation in the southern Philippines through the ages, through the years, 400 years or 450 or even 500 years, because we are celebrating today, this year, 2021, the arrival of Christianity to the Philippines. 500 years, you see. I don't know, there were big plan of celebration. It was a preparation of 5 years. And suddenly we have COVID-19 and we do not know how to celebrate that. So, but it will be a 500 years of relations between Islam and Christianity, not only in the case of the southern Philippines, but also for the entire archipelago. So, of course, will our celebration will our does this Muslim relation impact also our celebration? Because after 500 years of meeting, see, sometimes in opposition, sometimes in conflict, sometimes in harmony. So this is very important if we really truly embark the journey of spirituality, of being a pilgrim and shaheed. So the Muslim-Christian relation through the years should have an impact, should impact, you see, even our celebration. So of the arrival of Christianity in this land for 500 years ago. And then the present call, of course, the call to peace, the call to justice, the call for reconstruction and reconciliation. So I personally believe that this call should in a way impact also that journey, the journey that we make. So this is very important. But that will be the concrete case of the southern Philippines, or in particular, but it can be also the case of the archipelago of the Philippines, because we are celebrating 500 years. I don't know in Western Sahara if you can do likewise, you see. So the presence of the Christian, you're all, of course, you are all foreigners, you are very tiny minority, but of course, at one time it was a territory of Spain, and then afterwards, Morocco will relate with France. So whether will this impact the journey of the foreign Christians in Morocco, in Western Sahara? So these are the concrete contexts, you see, that I've been referring to, that we have to take cognizance when we embark in this particular journey. Of course, what lenses do we use? Is it the lens of traditions? Tradition, not necessarily the tradition of the past, you see, but it's a living tradition that continue to evolve. Will that be the lens that we use? Do we use the lens of the Vatican II and the Federation of Asian Bishop Conference? Do we use the lens of reform in Islam and the fundamentalism in Islam? So in a way, they are very much present here also, and they interpret history. They interpret also their presence now, and they interpret their being a mujahideen. So, but that is also a reform. Reform and fundamentalism is also what we call uh, a lens that can be used. You see. So we move. So many distractions. So in this journey, we have to have face-to-face encounter. You see, and not something like what you call romantic encounter, but face-to-face, beholding the face of the neighbor. You see, and they beholding our face also. So encounter face to face Muslims and Christians. So if we make this journey in that concrete context, is that we behold the face of our companion in the journey. So the concrete contour, the shape of that face, you see. So, but to begin with, perhaps as a point of departure is the knowledge that Islam and Christianity are not monolithic religions, as may be presented perhaps in popular media or how this media present them. The diversities and the shapes and shades of interpretation as well of the living of Islam and Christianity vary not only from country to country but also from community to community and from one individual to individual, you see. So, you have a lot of Muslim friends, but even their lives, you see, the face that you meet are varied. You see, of course, there will be some commonality, but the particularity will be very important, but it's the concrete shape of the face of the neighbor. So I keep on telling people, yeah, the first thing perhaps is to have that face to face, realizing the face and beholding the face of the neighbor. So whatever you see, it's important to look at the face, and they look at your face also, and you see each other, not eyeball to eyeball, but you recognize the face of the neighbor and seeing the neighbor there, and uh, and then you're gonna just go with your stereotype about that particular face. You see, that face is continuously revealing to you the characteristic, the particularity of that face, which is important. So that will be a rich experience personally in my own living with them in different places, and even now when they come to my place, you see the different shades, the different expressions, the different manifestations of their spirituality and religion and their journey, you see, when we meet face to face. Similarly also perhaps they see that when they meet different Christians, you see. So maybe some Christian, the face is bigotry or perhaps a suspicion. So, but they meet the face of a Christian that is trustful and can be trusted. You see, a friend. So the face is a friend. The face of an enemy. The face of an alien. You see, a face of a foreigner. You see, but it's good to have that kind of face to face encounter with the neighbor in that particular journey. So then after meeting face to face to be able to, this is now what we call the slogan in the Philippines, you see, fake news. Everything is fake news. Our government is very fond of making fake news. So you no longer distinguish what is the real and what is fake, you see. So similarly, perhaps in our encounter face to face, we'll be able to uncover what is fake and what is real. So particularly in this modern age of social media, fake news, uh, fake news will be the characteristic of our time. But people need to distinguish between the core message of religions, that is Islam, Christianity, or even Judaism, from what is popular, the Islamic Empire, the Islamic rule, the Christendom, or perhaps Al Qaeda, Jama Islamiyah. So there are aberrations in the Islamic Empire, as there are aberrations also in the Christendom. So as well. So to be able to distinguish the core message of the religion or the core message of this path, and then the fake news about this path. So what is important is that people of goodwill and experts do not judge religions by the aberration of its members or by the aberrations of governors or even by their pseudo experts. Because very often we judge the other by the aberrations, you see, that we see, by the aberrations of the governor, by the aberrations, say, for example, of the pseudo experts, or by the aberrations by this fundamentalism or by the extremism. So the cautela or the caution perhaps that is being given to us is that we don't judge the other by the aberrations that we see present in that religion or the aberrations of some followers of that religion or even by governor. That works both ways. They do not judge us by the aberration of Christendom, as we do not judge them also by the aberration of the Caliphate or the Daesh or the Jama Islamiyah or even Al Qaeda. So that's why we have to distinguish the core message, the real message of that of this particular community of faith, and what is faith. Yes, in that journey, we will be able to recognize the bitter past. And Nostra Aetate precisely have mentioned the long years, centuries indeed, of the bitterness. It so happened that Christianity and Islam are always at odds with one another, and it continues to be at odds, you see. Similarly, Islam and Judaism, you see. The whole issue of Jerusalem, the whole issue of Palestine, and the whole issue of Israel, you see, this all contribute to the bitterness, you see. The whole Western world and the world of Islam is part of the whole bitter past, our history. So we are aware of the bitter history of our hostility and acknowledge it. And we do apologize for the wrong and injustice wrought upon them, albeit wrongly done in the name of God. So all the things in the name of God in Christianity, in Islam. So all the aberrations are done in the name of God, you see. Albeit these aberrations are done in the name of God, we acknowledge them and we apologize. No, John Paul II was good in making this apology. Remember, during the 500 years also of the discovery of the Americas, and then John Paul II made an apology for the treatment and the relationship with the indigenous people of the Americas. So similarly also, in the same way, in the long years, centuries of relationship between Islam and Christianity, we acknowledge, you see, this aberration, the wrongdoing, the hostility, and by asking apology, it does not diminish the holiness, the sanctity, or even the integrity of our faith, which is important. So acknowledging bitter past, and people say is that it's very important that we come into terms with our past and take hold of our bitter past, because it also, so the present also, to be aware of the years of discrimination. This is valid both ways. Muslim discriminating Christians and other minority in many countries where they are the majority. Similarly, also Christians, many people in the Philippines, they say we discriminate against the Muslim. So some people don't believe because Philippines is a lay state, a secular state, the separation of church and state, you see. So some people will come to the defense. No, we don't discriminate. They are citizens. They have the same rights and privileges. And yet, we know very well, because some of my Muslim friends would like to live in villages in Davao, or in villages in Cagayan de Oro, or even in select villages in Cebu or even Manila. But Muslims are not allowed to reside there, you see, because they don't like to have Muslim neighbor. So sometimes I I was accompanying my friends, Muslim, and we went to a condo in Cebu. And then because my Muslim friend is wearing a hijab, and immediately said that no, no, not available. You see that the kind of discrimination works both ways. Christian discriminating Muslim, Muslim discriminating Christian. But it's good to be aware in this present time, they continue. So discrimination continues. Our stereotypes continue. The bigotry and at times persecution of the minority continue, particularly there in your place, you see, that the Christian feel persecuted. I remember my stay in Egypt, you see, during the time of President Sadat, that the Ikhwan every Friday when they go to the mosque, when they go out of the mosque, they go and stone the Christians. And the Coptics, the cleric of the Coptic, of course, they wear the long robe and they have a big veil also, and they're being stoned, you see. But the Coptic is not only a religion, it's also an identity. And they, of course, some people fight, but and riot and communal riot, but they are the minority, but it's a sizable minority, but they experience that persecution. I remember many of my Coptic friends telling me, why are you studying Islam? So this is a big scandal to them, you see, because of that, you see. But to be aware of this, because of they've been persecuted, they've been minoritized. That's why it's good that in the present time to review the status of the minority and to ask the questions, are they really co-citizens? I'm sure the Christians in your area will say, oh, we are not citizens, the minority is persecuted. But in the Philippines, they are not. Who says so? You see, that's why my Muslim friend will tell me they've been asking for a Muslim, the Supreme Court of the Philippines, and none, even now. So I'm asking, is there a Muslim general, you see, in the army? So they only go as far as colonel, you see. So this reality is there, you see. So these are reality. But we are not, if you are not aware of this, you see, because we belong to the majority, and we don't have the feeling, the sentiments of the tiny minority in our midst. Do we take seriously that they are co-citizens? So in North Africa, many of the Christians do believe and do feel that they are not co-citizens, you see. So in the same way also, that the Muslim in majority Christians, they believe that there are no co-citizens. So it's good to examine the status of minority or the status of the minority will be as protected people. In Morocco, because of the Marrakesh Declaration, you're familiar with the Marrakesh Declaration, that the minority is protected. But the protection of the minority will be along the line of the Dhimma, the principle of the Dhimma or the Dhimmi. You see, the protected people. But of course, as Monsignor Mario will know, that protection will entail being a second-class citizen. So, yet second-class, protected, yet second-class. But that is a reality, you see. So, as we continue to journey of being a pilgrim and continue to join the being a witness, we become aware of that status of the minority where we live, or the status of the minority nearby, or the status of the minority worldwide. You see, it's particular we are developing a global solidarity. So a community of nations, you see, at the level of the United Nations, at the level, say, for example, at regional associations. So it's important to put in the agenda the status of minority. So part and parcel of the present is the feeling that they are excluded in holding public offices, particularly top public offices, you see. Either whether a Muslim in a Christian-dominated nations or a Christian in a Muslim-dominated nation. But these are there, you see. They're sitting inside. So we have to take hold of this, you see. We have to confront this. We have to name it, you see. So that is very important as we continue the journey of being a pilgrim, at the same time also being a witness. So, however, it's good to be aware that notwithstanding all those, you see, that I've stated, it's good to realize that there are good stories Not only good stories in each other community and tradition, but good stories also of relationship between Christians and Muslims. So we have heard them in the past as well as contemporary times. These are good stories of living together, good stories of friendly relations, and good story of the dialogue. Uh, good good story of cooperation and partnership between our faith communities, between ordinary Muslim and ordinary Christians. These are the good stories that we need to hear more and more, and we put them in the mainstream. This I have been telling people. You compare perhaps all our relationship to a big mighty river here in Mindanao. We have the Rio Grande de Mindanao or Rio Polangi in Islam. So it will be a lot of tributaries, you see. So the tributaries will be all the small streams. Perhaps standing alone, the small stream will not be noticed. But when these all small streams, you see, along the mighty river, adding water and contributing to that mighty river, that will be a perfect image of, of, of the good stories that we need to mainstream. These are the tributaries of that mighty river, perhaps the community that we would like to form in that reality of pluralism. So, and perhaps if we realize these many streams, the question of Padre Chicho is valid, you see. Other word is possible. By the way, that is taken from the social forum in Brazil that when I was Justice and Peace, that I would like to mainstream in the oblique congregation to be participating in the struggle of the poor, you see, worldwide. Solidarity with struggling poor. So yes, creating the possibility of other world, you see, possibility of a Muslim Christian partnership. That is the other world. And the good stories that we have, you see, becomes contributory to the creation and establishment of that other world. Will it happen in our own lifetime? Oh my God, this perhaps it will not happen in my own lifetime. You see, it will happen in the lifetime of not children, but of the present generation, the young people. We do not know. But will it happen perhaps in 100 years? We do not know. But what is important is that these good stories, our good relationship, are tributaries to that main river, the world that we would like to create, that other world, and that other world is possible. And I've been telling them is that, don't we say in the Psalm that one day before the Lord and 1,000 days will be exactly the same? So when we work for that other world, you see, one day, you see, 1 year, 5 years, 500 years, you see, after all, we have been in 500 years as a Christians, you see, perhaps that other world can be possible. So we need to be an optimist, you see. So, and contributing to these are repetition, of course, but it's good to repeat them just to be reminded. But these are the new winds in our sail. You see, if you have the image of that river and we have that sailboat, you see the new winds blowing our sailboat. Maybe, of course, the Vatican II Insight, Noso Aetate. In Asia will be the triple dialogue of the ABAC, the documents and the initiative of JPA2, Syria, the Assisi movement, uh, dialogue and proclamation, the joint statement by the congregations of Propaganda Vitae and the Pontifical Council of Interreligious Dialogue, the Common War, the letter of the Muslims to the Christian leaders, and in a more recent time, the Laudato Si and the Fratelli, and many more. We include also perhaps the Marrakesh Declaration. So nevertheless, there's a big question mark there. Or the Amman Declaration, there's also a question mark because the protection that is being given will be along Islamic terms, you see. But nevertheless, these will be new winds, fresh winds that blowing our way so that we'll be able to sail. So in that mighty river, Rio Grande de Mindanao. So that is very important. So to take cognizance of the and to recognize these new winds blowing our way, Or some people say, but the famous saying, these are the winds beneath our wings in order to continue the journey to becoming pilgrim and to becoming witness. So, okay. Uh, uh, People are familiar, of course, on the Enneagram. And people have said that Enneagram is coming from the Sufi tradition, okay? So it's good that this will be Arabic proverb coming from the Sufi traditions that one encounters God in the journey through the three centers that God has provided in His creature. The three centers. And that is the head, the heart, and the gut, you see. The head in the Islamic tradition of the Sufi will be the knowledge of the law, and that is the Sharia and the and which is important, and the Islamic jurisprudence, and of course the other center is the heart, which is important, love and compassion, Rahman wa Rahim, and the gut will be associated to actions and deeds. You see, the courage, the boldness to take actions, and because that spirituality is also in our actions and our deeds, the boldness of our actions and boldness of our deeds in rowing that boat, you see, and braving the storm, the gust of wind, you see, and believing and hoping. That is the center of the God, you see. The three centers are very important, you see, in making the journey in sailing that boat. So if we go a little bit further, the head is finding the path, and the ordinary way in the first lecture that I had, the ordinary Muslims, that path is the law, the Sharia. Of course, the right path is the law of God, that is Sirat al-Mustaqim. The faithful observance of the law of God is walking through the straight path that leads to life, as symbolized by the spring of water over in the desert. That is Sharik, the Sharia is so important. Islamic law lays the right movements of rituals. It is not only the law that is what you do and what you don't and you do, but actually rituals, prayers are governed also by the Islamic law. So rituals, right behavior and relationship in community, and above all indicate duties and obligation. This is the rudder that keeps the boat in the right direction and keeps it from keeling. So that's very important, but that is the head center, and you can attain your spirituality through that God. But important, the integration of the three centers, you see. And the faithful observance of the law leads to the resting place, the freedom, and life as well. But you need to graduate at the head level, you see. And that means the big journey is from the head to the heart. And as many people is that if we embark in a 1,000 miles journey, we make stride step by step or by kilometer. And the longest journey people say is the journey between the head and the heart. And that is the next center, you see, which is important. And the center, which is the heart, understanding, compassion, and mercy. So the heart can only fathom what is always in the mouth of the Muslims, and they begin every surah except for one in the name of God, Rahman or Rahim. So they hear open the Shahada that is always also Rahman or Rahim, praising God. But that can only be realized not by the center of the head or the center of the heart. It is in the heart that God dwells. Dwells the love of God, and the love of neighbor. It is in the heart, not in the head. In a mystical tradition, Huwa is the name of God. That I projected that in the first lecture. Huwa, the calligraphy of Huwa, He, God. You see, of course, Allah can be also put like a lamb and put in a niche, and the niche is in the form of the heart. The heart is the niche of the lighted lamp, the lamp that gives light, you see, in that journey. Yes, the laws is the map, you see, provide the map, you see, but it's the heart that provides the light, you see, in order to travel in that light. So in that spiritual journey, it is the Rahman Warahim, see, the kudus, you see, God kudus, you see, can only be discerned by the heart. So in the Sufi tradition, it is the center, the head is the first center, then the heart is the another center, and the last center will be the God. Uh, um, in many spiritual talks, one of those will be the talk of Father Philistrea. And I still remember that the movement of that journey of our spirituality, that when we were younger, yes, when we were younger, that is the first, perhaps in our 20s and perhaps early 30s, because we have a lot of time, we pay much attention to matters of consequence. What we wear, what we put in our hair, what we put in our face, or the kind of watch that we wear, or jewelry. These are all matters of consequences. Matters of consequence. But that will be typical of a young man or young woman between the age of, say, in the 20s or in the early 30s. But you need to graduate from the matters of consequence. You have to go higher. So, and that will be what we call, you start prioritizing your work. You see, that's why first things first. You see, because you have already a job. Perhaps you're a manager, or perhaps you're a teacher, or perhaps you're a priest, or perhaps you're a missionary, or you become a religious. So you like to prioritize. You see, what is first things first in your life? You see, oh, my apostolate, oh, my ministry, oh, my convento, oh, the sacrament. First things first. That is the second stage that happens in your early 30s until you reach midlife. I suppose that will be in your 40s or something in 40s, or perhaps. The prophet, of course, got the revelation at the age of Omr, that will be after passing to the great anxiety, perhaps a midlife crisis, you see. So, yes, that is the second stage, and perhaps that will be, the first will be the head center, the second will be the God center, and then the last stage we should be entering to that as we age, you see. I don't know whether that's true or not. You see, when you age, perhaps in your 50s and your 60s, perhaps in your senior years, definitely your attention will be at the heart of the matter. And the heart of the matter is precisely the Rahman wa Rahim, God's compassion and God's light, you see. And the center is the heart, you see. So the third center, of course, that is the force, the energy that moves us to action, you see. There is a spirituality that is important in our journey. And these are symbolized by the hands that help, the hands that reach out, the hands that build, you see, feet also that walk, that accompany. So we are fit to accompany, to walk in the journey, and to be give company to one another. Shoulder to carry the burden. We carry each other's burden, but that is also the God center in the Islamic tradition. And then arms to defend. Of course, they need to defend. The mujahideen defends. You see, that's still in the God. And of course, the reproductive organs that is to produce. You see, the community, because in Islam it's part of piety to produce. Is integral part of your piety, of your journey. So anyway, forget about yourself. Forget about, so in the journey, the production is very important because of the believers. You see, so that's why the two challenges in this lecture will be the challenge of being a pilgrim with those realities you see before us and witness. So these are the two challenges, to become a pilgrim and to become a witness. What is a pilgrim now? The way of the pilgrim. That is very important. So this will be the cross of this lecture. Pilgrim is like a bridge that allows people to walk from the visible to the invisible, to discover the secrets of both worlds, the invisible world and the visible world. So a pilgrim is that bridge. If you are familiar with the famous writer now, I'm sure the young people, Paulo Coelho is a famous So it's very fun of building that bridge, particularly in the World Pilgrim, you see, the visible and invisible, making that Compostela, Santiago de Compostela pilgrim, you see. Yes, each traveler discovered his or her own way of crossing, and each has his or her own path of crossing. That is precisely the good to be aware of that. And when you find the path, do not afraid to walk through it. Yes, you need certain courage to make mistakes. After all, disappointment, defeat, and even despair are tools of God, but you persevere in that path. So that's why you have the combination of the three centers. It is the God that will make you persevere. You have that courage, you see, even if you make mistakes. So it is the map is the head, you see, even a pilgrimage that gives you the map, you see. So, but at the same time also it is the heart, you see, the mercy and the compassion, you see, that you embrace all everything, you see, even despair because you realize that pilgrimage is God, the journey is God, you see. You're not going through this to God, but that very journey is God Himself, you see, accompanying you in your pilgrimage. So important. Yeah, in a fragile world and in a world broken relationship, the person of the Spirit through their lives are showing us that there is a way out. That is very important. You don't get stuck. So there is a way out. And a pilgrim can know that best. No, you don't stop in one place and that's it. And you surrender. You don't get stuck. You continue, you see, the journey. So because of course the journey itself is God, but you completed the whole thing, you see. And there's a way out in our difficulties. There is a way out in our disappointment, in our frustration. There is a way out in our present suffering, you see. And perhaps there is a way out in our experience of illness, you see. The pilgrims show that in this shaky, fast-changing, bewildering world in which we live, the only way to make sense is to make music, or write, or paint, or dance, in the language of the tradition of the moon, or to work and dedicate our lives to causes we believe in. So that is the tradition of the sun. At first, with all that we have, and then when that is no longer possible to do so with what we have left. So I find that very important, you see, in this journey. So when, especially when crises appear, you see, in the horizon, when challenges, you see, becomes the obstacles. So yeah, some people think it is the prayer, music, prayer, you see, solitude, you see. Some people say that that it's important that yes, we do whatever we have. So very often we pay attention with what we have, you see, in making that journey. But if this no longer possible, do not be discouraged. So do so also with what we have left, what is left of you. So, so, so go on. So, and it is for this reason that mystics and the rebels show us how the fire within that burns and sears. So the fire in our heart, the as a mystics and extremists, you see, the fanatics and the saints, you see, and the mystics. There's only a hairline difference, but the fire burns and sears. So, and the only difference is that the fire of the saint and the mystics shape what is beautiful, good, and true. So, we're all students of Rome, and one of the students of Rome tradition, at least during my time, will be Lonergan taught, Bernard Lonergan taught for many years at the Gregorian. So I'm an old man also. So what last we see in that tradition is that each one of us, when God created us, all of us, you see, Muslim, Christians, or any all people, you see, in the whole creation, God imprint also in our soul, in our person, what is beautiful, what is good, and what is true. So that's why we can recognize what is beautiful. We can recognize what is good. and we can recognize what is true. So in the same way, also we can recognize what is ugly, what is bad, and what is false. So that is beautiful, and the mystic and the rebels will be the fake, and then the mystics will be the true light, because it is the beauty, the good, and the true, and the light. You see, so which is important. So in the journey, we pay attention to this. You see, uh, with our companions. You see, we always become seekers in the journey, seekers of the beauty, seekers of the good, seekers of the light, and seeker of what is true. And that is becoming real pilgrimage. And that is becoming a saint and not becoming an extremist. Becoming holy and not becoming killer and murderer. So that is the way of the pilgrimage, the way of the pilgrim in that journey of spirituality, the challenge that we have to assume. The second major challenge is to embrace the way of witness, and that is the shaheed. What is a witness? What is a shaheed after all? If not someone who is moved by a powerful and intense experience and possessed with one haunting desire to tell it through words, action, dances, paintings, work of profession, etc. So the fundamental experience is very important for a witness. We are witnessing to this fundamental experience. We want to communicate this fundamental experience. We are possessed and by this fundamental experience, the experience of God, the experience of the good, the experience of the beauty, the experience of life. You see, and it is the one that we tell, and we are witness to this. You see, and we want to share through our actions, through our dances, through our paintings, through our study, and to our work. So the witness is truly special because he or she expresses without teaching or judgment or moralizing, but simply showing our place in the world beyond all our imagination. In the journey, towards the end of the journey, we become the world. We become the universe. As a matter of fact, we become the face of God. Wow, that's beautiful. When we become the face of God, we witness to the face of God until we ourselves become the face of God. Oh, it will take perhaps until thy kingdom come before I become the face of God. But anyway, we are moving in that journey. You see, we become the face of God. Of course, we become the face of the world. It's easier for me to become the face of the world, you see, because I'm very pragmatic, you see, I'm a materialist, or the face of the universe. But more challenging is a witness to that value that I believe in and the God that I worship, and becoming the face of God. Not only beholding the face of God, but becoming the face of God in this particular journey. So, no, to conclude this particular lecture is that this is a good slogan, something greater. No, every time I hear the call to pray, Allah Akbar, Akbar, you see, something greater. You see, the Akbar, you see, something great. The work or life or profession or work of ours is spirituality. When it is a reminder or a call to something bigger, greater, even beyond me. And this call indeed is addressed to all. So to take time to read, see, admire the handwriting on the wall, and this uplift us, not simply to stand on the mountaintop, neither to be able to walk on stormy seas, but raising us up to more than we can be, something greater. Because after all, when everything is said and done, we realize the God whom we worship is always greater than our estimation. Allah Akbar. So it's something greater. So I conclude there, and then we go to the gallery. I don't know if you are sleeping or not, you see.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
I don't know if you
Working.
are sleeping now, I can see you, you see. So something
Yeah.
greater, you see, is important. After all, whether you are in Sahara or we are in Nolo or we are in Cotabato, it's always becoming greater. And every time we
Great.
hear the cry to prayer, Allah Akbar, so it's a call to becoming greater. Yes, Father Chicho. Querido Chicho, ¿qué pasa?
We are still there. We are still there. The machine is working, but not electricity.
Okay. Any question now for the sharing?
No, beautiful lecture, June. I would like to hear again and go deeply on that, because I think as a good master, I don't know why the provincial is not appointing you the novice master, but anyway, maybe it's not.
That's not what they do. They become all Muslims, you see. They're afraid, you see. Yeah.
But I think the key is go to the essential, and maybe the three centers you made from the Muslim spirituality could help us also to integrate the context we are living in our spirituality. That is, for me, this is a challenge, really. From the time I'm here, I think I cannot pray in the same way I pray in Rome, for instance. I cannot believe in the same way I believe in Rome. I cannot act in the same way I act in Rome. It's something different, and this is to incorporate to me, and it's a gift from God as well. So this is my point right now. This is a commentary. It's not no question. Maybe it's just I like it. I like it. Thank you.
Okay. Really good. Juan de la Cruz, you see, Padre Eres Juan de la Cruz, you see. Okay.
Yeah. No, Matamoros.
Okay, Father Valerio, do you have anything to say, Father Valerio?
Well, I really appreciate the way you are explaining things, because all the time, as I say, when you speak, I try to compare with our life here, what we see, what we hear, and what we live in. And at the end, you talk about someone on top of the mountain, seeing the world and doing a kind of meditation. And here I know people who simply go to the desert and stay there. And sometimes they go on top of a hill or a mountain. There are not many mountains here, and they contemplate in their way. For us, it is a kind of witness we can also follow, like a mystical way of living, the reality, to avoid the noise of the town and go there and in the solitude, being alone there. So to meet the richness of God or Allah.
Yes.
And also, yeah. Yeah, I wanted to comment anything maybe.
Mm-hmm. The Monsignor there, Monsignor Mario.
Monsignor Mario is listening with attention. Yes. Not sleeping. Well, I liked a lot. I think that it is good for us to have it in video, as Father Chicho said, to reread, well, just to see so many elements for us to quietly ponder and meditate. I would like to add two little things, tiny things, adding or complementing what you said. I think John Paul II, Pope, Saint John Paul II, he first met, but probably not first met, but really was touched in his journey to Turkey.
Yeah.
In 1979.
Okay.
And I think this was the first moment when he discovered, in his address to the Christians, he said that also it is time for us to forget conflicts and history, and because times are changing and we have to make something new. And after that, you see, he really started movements and processes, and it was very important. But this journey in Turkey, also for the time, it was important. For the Christians who were living in North Africa, for instance, this first journey was important, the message. And you spoke about good stories. sometimes I realize now that I might be becoming a bit pessimistic now that you listen to you, and I would not like to. But I see at least the good stories in North Africa or in Europe. I see in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, or maybe before, I don't know. I didn't really know that time, that period of time. In North Africa, there were a lot of good stories. I mean, if you, the monks of Turin and others lived the Ribat Salam, no? the bond of peace in Algeria, precisely. This is a very, very good story to deepen in. In the statutes, because you were saying about the spirituality, and I really wanted to read, well, it is in Spanish, but I will try to translate. In the statutes of that Ribat Salam, number 7, it was said, written, and I guess accepted by the bishop, archbishop, the cardinal, and also by the diocese, no? Don't be afraid of the repercussions, because it was a movement to let even Muslim spirituality take you, seize you, and influence. They can take over or get an influence on your life. So don't be afraid of the repercussions, the consequences that our meeting with our neighbor, with the Muslim, and with his religious tradition might take over our own personal and communitarian faith. So maybe you see, it was the experience and the longing of that people that I don't know if I may be pessimistic. We still see in our North African churches, for instance. But it was interesting. Anyway, just to conclude, we need good stories. Maybe from Asia, you have a lot of good stories to tell.
Yeah. We collect those good stories. You see, they are very important. You see, and they uplift that also in terms of discouragement. You see, to hear the good stories. You see, what's good, what is important, as you have said. You see, we continue. Nonetheless, all the repercussion, we continue with courage and daring. You see, and being bold. You see, I remember the conversation between Paul the Sixth rather. And that is after the council with our Bishop Benny Tutut, who died also, Benny Tutut. And that is during the height of the war in the southern Philippines. And during that liminal visit of Benny Tutut to Paul the Sixth, and Paul the Sixth asked the bishop, "Oh, Marawi, Lanao, that is the very center of trouble and conflict, you see, between Islam and Christianity, between the soldiers and the rebels. So, and there are many projects. Well, how is the situation there?" And the Benny said, but the Christian prejudices, the Christian, what you call this, stereotypes sometimes have basis, you see, have basis in the concrete experiences. That's why this animosity, they have concrete basis in the experiences. That's the bad story and the good stories. But anyway, Paul VI said, isn't the challenge of Christianity is that even the experience of Christians with basis in facts, but the real challenge for us is to go deeper and further, you see, even with that bad experience, you see. So that's a big challenge and the turning point on the life of Benny Tutut. And he said that even if the Christian judgment of the other as basis, but we have to change it and move, you see, move forward, establish new relations and venture, you see, in the new relations and remove the discrimination. And you can do that only with boldness, you see. So notwithstanding, you see, all these difficulties, we move forward. So, for example, I've shared my experiences, my trauma, living with them when I was victim of war, you see. And I closed that in my closet and never again to open with lock, stock, lock, and barrel. So, but I need to reopen it, you see, and to make a new beginning, you see. as I said, the second time around is sweeter. The second time around is sweeter. So you have to reopen your box, you see, your treasure, and you have to begin, you see, and that also brought about healing in me, my trauma, you see, in being able to pick up the pieces and begin anew. Anyway.
I would like to challenge you. I think, we make a number of oblasio about oblates in the Muslim world,
Yeah.
and share different things.
Yeah.
For it will be very interesting if you and other people maybe can bring to the whole congregation how Muslims' experience of working and living with the Muslim bring to the charis, oblate charis, something new coming from the spirit, maybe you are in this position and other people in Philippines because you have a long experience there to do that. Maybe just a paper or maybe something else, because I think from this experience is a richness to the whole congregation. You, Father Santoyo, other people maybe, and I challenge you just to do that because you are very wise on that.
I wrote an article in the last issue of Oblatio about our experience in the Philippines. So I wrote one article there. But our young people don't read the Oblatios. You see, I don't know, people are not reading anymore. You see, the millennials, you see, they cannot read beyond one page. You see, so they use also the text only, and then I don't know, but anyway, we should have a different communication. But that's true. Okay, we will try to do that. Father Ramon is trying to jumpstart that, but seemingly no taker. You see, I look at the OMI and Islam. No one contribute there. Even their experiences coming from Indonesia, from Bangladesh, from Senegal, or from Western Sahara. Nobody, you see, it should be an interactive, you see. If you look at that page, you see, it's always Eliseo Mercado, you see over there. So, in that thing. So, I don't know why the generation of interest is very important. And Father Rolheiser said that this is one of the major challenges that we face in our contemporary times, the challenge of Islam. And particularly for the Western world, with the whole migrants, you see, is the challenge of Islam, you see. But we have not really faced the challenge of Islam. So I was trying to do that with you see, the challenge of Islam. Okay. It's good. Western Sahara is yeah, bravo. Sono bravi questi missionari, you see, this Western Sahara.
When you speak about the good stories, you have 500 year of history of the meeting with the Islam, I think so. But over here we have only 66 years old, or 67, more or less. It is very short. But anyway, many people here try to remind the good relationship they got with the priest who stayed here. Maybe they didn't have a good contact in the sense of religion with them, because in that period, colonial time, they were called the Spanish church. They didn't say a Catholic church or a Christian church. They were saying the Spanish church. So they remind the good relationship, the good stories they got with those priests at that time. And they said that with a good heart and good souvenir they have. This is the kind of things which bring us together in time of dialogue with other religion, instead of putting us separated. It brings us together, and it builds the good relation between the religions, and also the good relationship with the individual.
Yeah.
We are receiving a legacy from those priests who were staying here before us. Because of that kind of relationship, they consider us also like good persons. You see, it is very good in terms of dialogue between religions.
Yes. That's true. By the way, to give you an example, Chicho, no, I'm very happy with Father Ed Santoyo, the president of Notre Dame of Polo College, you see, because Polo is about 98% Muslim. And I would like the interest and the passion of Father Santoyo to follow, you see. And I invited also the Bishop of Polo to join us, you see. I don't know, most probably he's so busy, but and of course, our provincial, I'm very happy. Our provincial, he cannot attend now because he had a mass, but he will see the YouTube. So, and he's happy that I put it in YouTube and I shared that with our OMI and Islam. But you told me, Father Chicho, that they would like to feature that in the OMI world, the OMI world.
Father Sanil asked me. Father Sanil is the one of the information, OMI information.
Yes, yes.
So he can use the video for the OMI world social nets. I mean,
Yeah,
Facebook and other.
yeah.
I
They,
say it's just Father Jumado.
They did very well in the celebration of the Spanish martyrs. I watch it, you see. It's well done, you see, well done. Did you watch that, the Spanish martyrs, the celebration, the commemoration of the Spanish martyrs? It was a forum with Santucci, with the Diego, and yeah, and of course during the video of the beatification of the martyrs and the pictures of these young people, 18, 20, 23. It's very powerful, the celebration. So it seems something similar also can be done with our dialogue with the Muslims or living with the Muslims. So
Why
that's
not?
good. Because now it's only lecture. I don't know whether that would be interesting, you see. Our
Right.
lecture, you see, totally different. You see, the format is different.
If you want, I can propose him to do something like that and see what is happening.
Yeah. Or he can use that. He can use the YouTube if he wants. But the only thing that will not be very interesting for our young people is a lecture, unless you're
Right.
passionate about Islam. You see.
Okay, that's fine. Both. We can use both.
Now they can do it both. Yeah. Can you say something, Father Ed Santoyo? Would you like to say something?
Please.
Well, definitely the exchange in terms of the importance of documenting success stories, the dialogue of life, the dialogue of action, the dialogue of faith among different civilizations is something that we really need to value. For example, here in Holo, we have had so many experiences in terms of the harmonious relationships between and among Christians and other civilizations. But it is something that also needs to be planned, documented. I remember Father Bert Lyson. He also has a rich collection of stories, not only in Holo but also in Pikit Cotabato, where he tried to trace the harmonious relationships, especially when the Christians migrated to Mindanao, particularly Cotabato. So it is just a reminder, especially here in the district of Holo in Sulu, for all the missionaries to also come up with documentation of solidarity with people, emphasizing the one word, the love of God and love of neighbor, so that we mutually give witness to the unconditional love of God.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't know if Father Miguel Fritz. I see but no picture. Miguel Fritz is he participating here? Father Miguel, are you there?
No video.
No?
No. Okay. So it's your siesta time. Your siesta time is completed, so you get no siesta. So I'm murdering the people in Sahara. So okay, we have to go to bed. It's now almost 10 o'clock. So thank you very
Then,
much. See you tomorrow. Again, the last lecture will be tomorrow. I'll forward to you the okay. And perhaps
okay.
you can ask Father Chicho, can you give us the concluding prayer and the blessing?
Okay. Let us remember Mary today as a common point for us, Muslims and Christians, as the mother of Jesus. Let us pray to Mary, we missionary oblates, that she leads us in this spiritual journey with simplicity, purity, transparency, truth. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee.
Blessed
Blessed are
are
you
you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
May Almighty God bless you, the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Father John, Father Chicho, and community.
Okay.
Thank
Good night,
you.
Pastor Santoyo, and good afternoon for our people in the Sahara. For us, it will be
Okay.
good night.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you. And then stop the recording already, no?
Christmas.